song Wakeboard, the third track on my EP, has a bit of history to it because it is actually a reimagining of one of my first songs that I made from my crappy recordings of my keyboard put into Audacity. It didn't have any fancy editing tools aside from just the basics, so I had to edit each individual part and instrument to layer on top of one another. And so I wanted to bring out the potential I first had in my head, but I wasn't able to achieve because of my limited resources. I really liked the ideas that I had in the song, and so I just wanted to add a more flexibility and put what I knew now about audio and music to make something much better. I still keep the old Audacity version just because it's part of it's documentation of what I've done in the past, and so it's always something I'll treasure because of that. I wanted to reimagine this for my own sake. Though one of the most important things to me was to recreate the intro synth, something that was very watery and smooth to me. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I did the first time so I could replicate it, and for the most part I was able to make the sound nearly identical to the original, aside from better production quality in general. In the old song, I put a bit of reverb on the drums, and the reverb made the original sound very big and metallic. Because the Audacity reverb made everything sound like it was in a small sewer underground or something. It didn't really sound that good, but it was all I could do. I wanted to preserve the nature of the drums for the new version without the flaws of the Audacity reverb. So throughout the whole song, I placed a fair amount of distortion on the songs so everything sounded destructive and full, so you could hear the kind of screeching sound. I thought of it as sort of a symbol of being behind a jet boat and the rushing water around you as you're riding a wakeboard. Because whenever you're riding, all you can really hear is the water in the boat's engine. And that was the main idea I was going for when writing this song. One of the things you hear is this weird drum sound that kind of pulses and changes pitch. And what I did to get those sounds was I rendered part of the dry or unedited part of the audio and made several different versions of the sample. I made various pitches of the sample, pitch down, one pitched even further down to make it sound even deeper. Sliding pitches, or I would have the audio slide the pitch it was at from like down to up to down, all sorts of stuff to emulate what I did on the original. It took a while to actually get them rendered and everything and to get them just right, but it was a lot of fun to use gritty samples to add variation to the part. And it was something that made me proud because I knew how to manipulate the samples that were now completely original from any other sample I've used. So it was very cool and rewarding for me. With the distortion, basically limiting how loud the drums can be all at once. In play, I was curious to see how they would sound if I combined the normal drums with the sliding pitch samples I made. I thought it'd be cool because it created this very distorted progression for the drums to be introduced and finished with. It has a lot of presence in the mix, so I decided to keep it in. After the intro, it goes into a bit of a calmer state. I'd like to think of it as the moments after you crash and are in the water, and you're just waiting for the boat to round you up again. You don't really have anything else to do but wait for the boat, so it gives you a little time to think and relax a bit before you get to ride the water again. And for me, those moments right before I started again are some of the most intense moments for me. just anticipating it. And that's how I wanted it to feel when the second part of the song progressed, just getting a little more exciting. Overall, I wanted the quiet parts to feel like you're in the water, so that's why I filtered the drums so you can only really feel the kick and the snare. Much like how it is when you hear underwater. You can feel a lot, but sometimes you can hear really clearly as if you're right next to it, which is what that ringing instrument is supposed to be representing. Speaking of the ringing synth, I like to use automation to hard pan instruments left and right in a pulsing manner for this song in particular, because I think it adds a trippy, interesting dynamic for the ears to enjoy, and it helps make the ringing sound the other instruments in the mix. Going further into the song, after you hear the chorus and more of the digression, I always like hearing string sounds and going into the bridge of it, or there's not really a bridge so much in this song because I don't really repeat much except for the intro in the chorus. I added several verse melodies rather. Going into the second verse essentially. I thought it'd be cool to add a string part. I wanted to use the strings to add a little more something to the sound, and being a fan of strings, I thought it was the perfect fit for it. It matched the chord progression, and so it didn't challenge the melody that I established, but it added a cool layer onto the sounds that are already compiling the whole chord progression. You hear the melody of the strings the first time, but the second time I added the harmonies to the strings to make it sound fuller. Ultimately, just to add more musical detail into it. Adding harmonies is always really fun for me because as long as you stick to the chord progression, you can't really go wrong, and it's always way more interesting than hearing the single notes going along. That's why I brought the strings back to the chorus once I repeat it, to once again just mix it up. I didn't change the chorus as much because I didn't think it was as important to vary up the chorus when the song isn't really as repetitive as maybe other songs are. And I liked it how it was anyways, so I decided to keep it the way it was. And so this song will always be kind of special to me because it just shows the huge contrast between what I knew then and what I knew now. And so kind of documenting the process for myself is always encouraging so I can keep on getting better and not feeling discouraged. But the comparisons from my old stuff to what I can do now always reminds me that I can only get better.